Live from the House of LeMay Makeup and Dressing Room.
Here comes Amber. Stop what you're doing. Here comes Amber. She's just doing what she can. Here comes Amber. Cue the spotlight. Here comes Amber with 2 drinks in her hand. The matriarch of fashion, secrets to her glasses, you can't look away. Ask her, does she do it? There's really nothing to it. She's got that feminine game. If you have a party, or if you're feeling naughty, call up the House of LeMay. Here comes your favorite gal. Here comes your queen. Here comes your talk of the town. And we're live tonight. The music starts playing. It's time for cabareting on Amber Live tonight.
Ladies and gentlemen, please turn off all cell phones and get ready for your host, Amber LeMay.
Hello, 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 and welcome to another edition of Amber Live. But first, I want you to like, share, and subscribe. Please subscribe. We'd love to see those numbers grow. Yes, thank you. All right, now, what does a drag queen, a church, and rock and roll have in common? They're all a part of this week's headlines. Florida has a new sweetheart, and her name is Ron DeSantis. Miss Santis was introduced at the St. Petersburg Pride celebration in June by multimedia artist, designer, and muralist Chad Mize. State Representative Anthony Sabatini plans to propose legislation to charge parents with a felony and remove their parental rights if they bring a child to a drag show. Now, after Florida Governor Ron DeSantis shared his support of criminalizing parents bringing their children to drag shows, Mize released a new sticker depicting the Republican leader. In the image, Ron DeSantis is holding a rainbow flag and has a speech bubble that says gay, a nod to Florida's Don't Say Gay bill, which limits how gender identity and sexual orientation can be discussed at school. After supporters asked for products featuring the design, Mize decided to print 200 stickers and paid for the cost of printing himself. Mize said, "Now, this isn't something I would want to profit off of, so I decided to donate 100 of sales to Equality Florida." Equality Florida is a political advocacy group dedicated to LGBTQ plus civil rights. Now, I want to thank Florida viewer Linda Stevens for sending us this story idea. Now, if you have a story idea for the show, send them to amberlemaylive@gmail.com. To celebrate Pride Month, the United Church of Christ in Kansas City, Missouri displayed on their front lawn 6 rainbow-colored doors with the inscription, "God's doors are open to all." Pretty, isn't it? Well, someone in the community didn't think so and defaced the display by painting PERVS and with 1 door remaining squeezed in repentance. Local citizens came out in full to help cover up the offending words and restore the bright colors of the display. The city's mayor took to Twitter to publicly condemn the defacing, tweeting, "This is disgusting and has no place in Kansas City." Not in Kansas City, not in Idaho, not nowhere. But in Idaho, there is a place for my new favorite radio station, 96.9 The Eagle. Why, you're wondering? I know that you are. This station, KKGL, shouts out classic rock and roll, and in honor of Pride Month, they changed their banner to Rock the Rainbow. But this year, the inclusive banner received several complaints from homophobic rock fans. So how did the station respond? They posted on their Facebook page, "Flag stays up for another month. Deal with it. If we lose fans, that's fine. If we keep getting harassed, then it will go another month. Plus, Freddie Mercury rules." Yes, he does. And so do you, KKGL. And that's this week's headlines. All right, that's the headlines. So now let's bring in Russell to talk about the show. Russell, come on in.
Hey, Amber.
Hey, good evening, Russell. Nice to see you.
Good to see you. Happy summer as it
Oh,
continues.
yes, yes. And I've heard that we have a lot of new viewers because they're looking for something new to do in the summer because all the summer reruns and everything. So they're checking in Amber Live. So what's the best way for them to watch?
Well, the best way for them to watch is on YouTube. You can see us in full HD on YouTube at youtube.com/Amber Live. But we are also available on Facebook, uh, Twitter, and Twitch, and so many other places. And I do want to remind people that in addition to watching the show, we've got all kinds of new materials going up on TikTok, Instagram, and you can catch us out there. And you can also find us on our website at amberlive.tv. So there's a lot of Amber out there. And if you're driving and can't watch Amber, you can always just listen to us at the Amber Live interviews, which are now a podcast. Which are some of our favorite and current interviews, and you can go find them. We're posting new ones each week. And so there's just a ton of Amber everywhere and lots of fun.
I'm everywhere. You can't escape Amber LeMay.
No,
No,
you cannot.
and what has helped us spread the word and the love of Amber is our good friends who support us. Tell us about that, Russell.
Yes, the bustiers. You can see our great list of the super bustiers and the regular bustiers there. And those are the people that have sent support to help us out. And we always need new bustiers because there are always new expenses coming up. And you can see there, you can use Venmo at RJD Pro, or you can go to amberlive.tv and look for the support Amber Live button and use a credit card there. And all of those people have donated, and we would love to get your name up there as well. Now, any amount is welcome. It all helps. But if you would like to give $20 or more, I will send you a logo or a sticker of our logo. And for $100 or more, you'll get a sticker and a magnet. And for $200 or more, you'll get a sticker, a magnet, and one of those beautiful Amber Live mugs. And again, that's all at the Venmo at RJD Pro, or you can use your credit card at amberlive.tv. And I want to say thank you, thank you, thank you to all of our current and future bustiers. Try saying that 5 times fast, because they're the ones that really do keep us going. So thank you, bustiers.
And we have a lot of supporters who not only watch us on Sunday night, but get together with us on Wednesdays as well, because we almost weekly, we call Amber Chat from like 8:15 to 9:15. You and I, and sometimes Duane Scott Cerny, and sometimes Rusty, and sometimes Rocco. We get in on talk, and our guests or our fans make comments, and we talk about what's going on in the world, what we had for dinner, what we've been watching on TV, and we just have a really good time on Wednesdays. But this Wednesday, we're taking it off. We've got other things that we need to do. So we won't be on this Wednesday, but we'll be back the following Wednesday. So be
Yes.
aware of that.
Yes, Amber Chat continues, and we love all our fans. So we're happy to have you be a part of the show.
Yes, I forgot Big J. Yeah, he'll be making a comment too. He joins us on Amber Chat
Yes, he
as
does,
well.
and other fans sometimes join us too. So it's
Yes.
a whole community of great people.
Yes, we call it the Amber's Crew. All right, so Russell, tell us about tonight's show.
Yes, tonight we have an amazing guest and someone who was brought to our attention by our friend Duane Scott Cerny in Chicago. And this is part of our continuing look at this great people of Chicago. And we have Tracy Baim, who is like the I don't know what to call her, the goddess of media in Chicago. She has done it all. She has interviewed everybody. She knows them if they live in Chicago and beyond too. And she is also, as you'll find out in this interview, highly intelligent and really, really tuned into what's going on in the world and things that we can do to help make the world a better place now that it's gotten a little crazy lately. So it's a great interview.
I can't wait to talk to her. Let's get on with the show. So, what's going on in the Windy City, otherwise known as Chicago? Well, I've got a person that's going to tell us some history and some current events that's going on in the gay world of Chicago. So please welcome Tracy Baim. Tracy, come on in.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Oh, Tracy, I just have so many things I'd like to talk to you about. So, first, just give us you started the Windy City Times, the first gay newspaper in Chicago, correct?
I was a co-founder of Windy City Times newspaper in 1985. There actually had been a couple dozen other prior LGBTQ newspapers. I worked at one of them. It was called Gay Life newspaper, owned by a man named Chuck Renslow, founder of International Mr. Leather. And then I co-founded Windy City Times, and then went on to do some other LGBT media in Chicago. There was a long history of LGBT media in the country, and
Oh, okay.
interestingly enough, in 1924, the very first known gay publication in the country was in Chicago. 1924, 98 years ago. The police shut them down. So I think there were two issues of friendship and freedom. A man named Henry Gerber, who was a postal worker, started it. So there's a great legacy here. And Windy City Times is still around since 1985. It's mostly in digital form. And so I've been really lucky to be in gay media because I'm trained in media, and to be able to stay in that for my whole career has been a blessing.
So tell us, how did you get your start in media and then going into the gay media?
So I grew up in a journalism family. My mother was kind of a woman journalism pioneer in the 1960s, trying to cover hard news and bouncing around in different jobs. And my stepfather had worked at the Chicago Tribune for 29 years, starting in the early 60s. So I had that in my kind of environment and in my blood. And I always wanted to be a journalist. Since I was 10, I started a newspaper at my grammar school. I worked at high school newspaper, college newspaper, and yearbook and everything. But I also was openly gay by the time I was in college. And so I was very concerned that I wouldn't have a career. In 1984, when I graduated college, there were a handful of openly gay journalists in the entire United States working at mainstream papers, including Randy Schultz in San Francisco. So very few people could make a career being openly gay and being a journalist. Something about the misnotion of objectivity and just discrimination generally. So I was actually very worried I wouldn't have a career. And when I graduated in 1984, my mother heard about a job at Gay Life newspaper. So a month out of graduation, I started doing typesetting and taking photos and doing anything I could.
Typesetting. You are old.
Yeah, I am old. There were these old refrigerator size machines that work like photo developing. I knew how to operate them, so that's how I got the job at Gay Life. And the old Mergenthaler machine, I knew how to get type out of it. So I started there and worked my way up to managing editor in about a year, and then co-founded Windy City Times, with a bunch of people from Gay Life, the city's next gay newspaper. Oh,
And you know that
that's a
oh
picture
my
of
goodness.
most of the early staff of Windy City Times. I'm on the lower left. Next to me is Jeff McCourt. He was the other co-founder. His partner, Bob Bearden, was another founder, as was a man named Chris Stryker. Bob got diagnosed with AIDS within a few weeks of starting Windy City Times. So he really was sick for about over a year and passed away in early 1987.
Well, you started off Windy City Times just as the AIDS epidemic was beginning.
Yeah. Yeah, it was profoundly impactful on my journalism career, on obviously the city of Chicago. And our role was to document the stories, the lives of people who were affected personally, those whose families were affected. And we had the benefit a little bit of learning how New York and San Francisco responded to it. It hit them first and much bigger. So a lot of the reporting we did was looking at how other cities were responding and the activism that was happening around it. The mainstream media was either ignoring it, or they were vilifying the gay community as kind of causing it, but also making innocent victims of hemophiliacs, and that therefore making guilty victims, right, of the gay community. So there was a lot of misinformation and really the vilification, the fear that was happening. And as a 21-year-old starting, there were fewer than 100 diagnosed cases of AIDS when I started in 1984. In fact, it had just been named AIDS. It had been called gay-related immune deficiency before that, and it was first known in 1981. They now think that it was around a lot longer than that. So by the time I came, it started to be defined as AIDS, and the community started its amazing response because of the neglect of the healthcare industry, the political industry. Everybody was ignoring this plague.
And it was you who I've read where many people were trusting you and looking at Windy City Times for information about where to get tested, where to get treated, and other things that were available, other services.
Yeah, I mean, the gay press played a really vital role, whether that was the New York Native or Windy City Times or Bayer Reporter, Washington Blade, all of us across the country in the pre-internet era, we were the only places that were doing that kind of full broad coverage, right? It was about the people affected, it was about the research happening, the activism when ACT UP came around later in the 80s. All of that was covered in the gay press at a significant level on a day-to-day basis pre-internet. So when you would pick up those weekly or biweekly papers, that was your literal lifeline to finding out doctors that would treat you without judgment. Howard Brown Health in Chicago would have, I want to say the word treatment, but there wasn't treatment for a very long time. But whatever there could be known, they would help and advise and find you care that was sensitive to who you were.
Picture that we saw of your original staff there at Windy City Times, there was quite a few people there. How did you pay them? I mean, was your advertising revenue that great?
A lot of those people were freelancers. So let's say a theater critic or a photographer. Um, I would say we had probably about 7 or 8 on full time staff at that point. The rest of the people were very important freelancers. Advertising has always been the basis for most gay press because almost all of us have been free, with the exception of places like The Advocate and subscription based publications. So advertising has been it. And back then, it was primarily gay businesses that would advertise, or sometimes liquor companies. Now the mainstream, media, even Bravo TV, et cetera, they're our competition because a lot of the pharmaceutical and other industries advertise to reach the gay community, not in the gay press. And it's very painful to see that we're taken advantage of, we're taken for granted, really. And the mainstream just leapfrogs over properties that are owned by gay people into the mainstream to reach our community. But back then, it was very few people that would even touch marketing to the gay press.
How did you distribute the Windy City Times?
It was freely distributed in bars and bookstores and record stores. Remember record stores? And eventually, by the 90s, we started to have news boxes. And now, in this era, there are these combined news boxes that some cities have. So, anywhere we could. Some people paid for a subscription. And all of our content, once the internet became active around 94, 95 in a more public way, we started to put our content all online for free. So, whatever channels we could find, like water, we would find ways to get it to people. I would take it to events. If I was going out of town, I would take copies with me. It was a lot of people would pass them on. It was a huge pass along value to the gay press. They would read it, send it to their, cousin in Ohio or whatever. So we don't even know how many people we reach. I still talk to people today that say how important it was in high school or college when they ran across a gay newspaper, especially in the late 80s, early 90s, before the internet, when it was really the only channel of communication.
You've switched over the Windy City Times from a hard copy to the internet. Tell us about that transition. What prompted it, and how's it going?
So, in the first year of COVID was also the 35th anniversary year of Windy City Times. In 2018, I took a full-time job at the Chicago Reader. So I kind of passed on the running of the Windy City Times to a handful of people that were still working there. But by the 35th anniversary in that first year of COVID, we realized, we just could not sustain the costs, even though they were pretty minor at that point, of doing a print issue, printing and delivery 10,000 copies. So we did a big send off last print issue. Now that I'm at the Reader, what we've also done is 4 times a year, we do a print insert in the Reader, which is 60,000 copies. And so we did a huge Pride issue. The Windy City Times insert portion of it, I think, was over 30 pages just of Windy City Times. So we do that 4 times a year, but 99% of what we do is really digital only and mostly freelancers and volunteers. It really can't sustain a staff anymore. We're working with a collaboration of 6 other local gay media called News is Out. We're partnering with the local media association, trying to see if there's new kinds of funding for gay press, like I've been doing for the Chicago Reader, which is now nonprofit. We don't necessarily have to go to nonprofit to get different kinds of revenue. There are funders out there that see the value of local community press. So the 7 of us in News is Out are looking to find new forms of revenue for the gay press generally, for our 7 outlets as a pilot, but we hope that it can expand its impact through foundation grants, through corporate sponsorships, et cetera. So we're in the very early phase of that, and we're very excited about the potential. So that could help papers like Windy City Times, Bayer Reporter, Blade, Dallas Voice, etc., get different kinds of revenue than just local advertising.
You mentioned the Chicago, the Weekly Reader. Tell us about your transition into that. How'd you get involved with them?
So the Chicago Reader had gone through a half dozen ownership transitions in the last 15 years or so. The last one was they were embedded at the Chicago Sun-Times, which is one of our daily newspapers, and it was really neglected in part because the Sun-Times itself was struggling to survive, and now it's thriving. But it was going to close down the Chicago Reader, and two of the board members of the Chicago Sun-Times purchased it for $1, and they needed somebody to run it. And because I had run a community paper for a long time and I had some vision about trying to move it into a different path, I was hired with 2 days notice that it was going to be shut down. So I met with the staff and we, worked really hard over the next year to shift and bring back the advertising that had been lost. At that point, Amy Matheny, who had been with me almost 20 years at Windy City Times, she joined the staff to bring on and bring back the advertising, and she was very successful. But within about a year, I convinced the owners that we needed to convert to a nonprofit organization. And so right before COVID hit, I put the application into the IRS for 501c3 status. We did get 501c3 status, and then we also got PPP loans, which delayed our transition. May 16th of this year, the full transition sale to the nonprofit organization happened. So the Chicago Reader, for first time ever, is actually in the space of nonprofit journalism. And it won't really change the coverage, but it will change the ability for us to get different kinds of revenue for survival.
How would you describe the Reader?
Well, it started in 1971 as one of the nation's first free alternative weeklies. Alt weekly was a phrase that was very common in the 70s, 80s, 90s for papers that were not of the mainstream. It doesn't really mean much anymore. Pretty much almost everything's alt at this point, and unfortunately there's the alt-right, so we don't like the association with that. But what it means is that for the reader, it takes an in-depth, behind-the-scenes look at culture, politics, and news investigations in a deeper way than the dailies can or other kinds of media can. So we fit a niche of covering culture that's up and coming, that is off the beaten track, stories that we spend 3, 4, 5 months on that the dailies, may cover on the surface. So it's investigative journalism, it's deep culture coverage, and kind of one of kind type journalism in Chicago. It complements the ecosystem. We've got over 100 media outlets in Chicago, and that's the case in most major markets. So we feel like we fit really well within the space we are. It's very similar to what the Village Voice used to be. And as a free weekly, it makes it very accessible. We print 60,000 copies. We're actually biweekly now. During COVID, we went to biweekly, and we're going to stay that way. And then we reach almost 1 million people online on a monthly basis. So most people see us in a digital format, but those 60,000 print copies are really important because it's free, it's accessible, and not everybody has a smartphone. Not everybody has access to high-speed internet and technology. So reaching those people through a free newspaper is a great equalizer, I think, in our democracy.
And I love having a newspaper in my hand. I'd much rather read it that way. It's easier to do the crossword, too. All right, Tracy, we've got much more to talk about, and we'll be back with Tracy Baim right after this message. Oh, but wait, there's more. Oh, fascinating story so far. We've got more to tell. And now we've got our other Chicago friend, Duane Scott Cerny, who's been up in my attic, and he's got a little bit of Chicago history as well. Take it away.
What's in your attic?
Burn the witch? First, I love Jane Byrne. Big fan. For those unaware, Jane Byrne was the first woman elected mayor to a major American city. When she was running in 1979, I was lucky enough to interview her for my college paper. Now, this poster is circa 1980 and was produced by a group of aldermen who were determined to derail her every move. You'll notice the flying monkey has the name JMC on his jacket, referring to Jay McMullen, Byrne's husband. So you know they weren't messing around with the insults. Okay, here's my confession. I stole this poster. Yes, from the office of my college newspaper office. It's the only thing I have ever stolen in my life, but at the time, it really pissed me off. Quick backstory: when Byrne discovered these posters were being printed, she had the Chicago police find the printing press and had it and all the plates destroyed. She didn't mess around either. Jane Byrne would go on to jumpstart the Chicago Film Office, an office former mayors had totally ignored, and helped generate hundreds of millions of dollars into the Chicago economy. I wouldn't be sitting here today if it weren't for Jane Byrne. I've propped hundreds of films and television shows along with countless other Chicago vintage dealers, and all because of Jane Byrne. Byrne the witch! Turns out Jane was a very, very good witch, and from the North Side.
What's in your attic?
Thank you, Duane. While you're up there, would you clean up a bit too? All right, let's get back to our interview. And now we're going to continue our interview with Tracy Baim. Come back in, Tracy.
Hi there.
Hello again. Tracy, you have been active in our community since the 70s. You've seen a lot happen, and you sent us some pictures. Let's take a look at some of those pictures.
This is me taking photos of our Mayor Daley Jr., probably early 90s. He was elected in the late 1980s. So I was, my little Pentax camera was with me wherever I went in coverage in the pre-digital era. I have probably over hundreds of thousands of photos in the Windy City Times archives that we've recently scanned and donated to the Chicago Public Library, because there's just so much history in those photos. As they say, 1,000 words in every photo. So we've got millions of words of history that we've collected over the years.
So how did politics play a part in the, lack of a better word, gay liberation of Chicago?
The clout of Chicago's gay community has meant that we have really influenced the political landscape of Chicago. Starting, I think, with Mayor Jane Byrne, where she had a strong gay following. But then she was defeated by Mayor Harold Washington, who had an even stronger gay following. He appointed the city's first gay liaison. He did a lot of work, and here's me interviewing Harold Washington about a year before he passed away in the 80s. Washington was very impactful in his work, and he appointed a gay committee of gay and lesbian issues back then. And gay people really had pushed hard for change. We had candidates that ran for office that were unsuccessful in the 1970s and 80s. The first candidate to break through was a Judge Tom Keough in 1994. But 25 years later, we got an openly gay mayor. So politics has been an intimate part of our community, not just for the elected officials, but for pushing for policy. That's really probably even more important. That the community was working on a gay rights ordinance in the 1980s, which was vital to have in the response to AIDS, because discrimination was so predominant against the community once we were found, and AIDS kind of called us out of the closets. And then as we came out of the closets in more force, discrimination was the response. So we needed policy change to deal with HIV/AIDS and with discrimination against the LGBTQ community.
Very good. Next picture, please.
So this is me kneeling up front with my little Pentax camera at a gay rights rally in, I believe, 1996. That was the summer that there was a huge push to get the gay rights bill passed in the city council, and the mayor Washington supported it, but we also had a very divided city council. It was the council wars. A lot of white ethnic aldermen were very obstructionist against Mayor Washington as a black mayor, the city's first black mayor. So the gay community was kind of caught up in that. And we wanted, as a community, an accounting of who was going to vote for it and against. So even though the community knew it might fail, knowing who voted for it and who voted against it was very important to the next election cycle, when some of those candidates were targeted and didn't even realize how many gay people lived in their wards in Chicago. So that protest was huge in terms of numbers. It was at Daley Plaza. There were buses from the bars because the bars were worried, that they didn't want to be negatively impacted by a rally that would nobody would be at. So it was a cooperative arrangement with the business community to participate. And it was an incredible event. People across the community came together. Not always do we come together, but this was one of those moments in Chicago where so many people came together to push for rights. Very important event in the 1980s Chicago community.
All right, one more picture.
This is the Outlines Mustang in the Chicago Pride Parade. Look how small this is. I mean, back then we probably had 50 to 100,000 people along the route. Now it's million. Um, the newspaper Outlines, that's me in the car, came about after Windy City Times. I left Windy City Times as after one of the co-founders died, Bob, and I really had gone to do it because of him, and he died. And I thought, I can't really work with the guy that was left. But 13 years later, I purchased Windy City Times back from that co-founder, and Outlines folded into Windy City Times.
That's great. Do we have any more pictures, Russell? Oh, yes.
This is me with Studs Terkel at the Studs Terkel Awards. This is one of the honors in my life in 2005. When Studs Terkel was still alive, I received the Studs Terkel Award, and that was named for him by the Public Narrative Organization for people that were following in his footsteps. So what an honor to.
Oh, yes.
For those who don't know
Yes.
who Studs Terkel is, please do look him up. He's one of the most important storytellers of our country ever.
Now, did you have any sort of relationship with him?
I
Did
did
you get a
not.
chance to talk to him?
I did at that event, but I had never had a relationship before. And when he read my nomination into that, I wish I had video on my, I didn't have a cell phone back then. To hear him say the words about me following in his footsteps
Oh,
was quite a motivator, quite an honor, and still try to live up to that every day.
oh, wow, wow! What an honor that is. Yes, yes. All right, you mentioned earlier the gay community, the gay press. Is that your standard word to use for our community?
Because I'm talking about it in a historical context, yes. Because over the course of decades and decades, um, that has been the name, right? So when I started, it was the gay press. I wrote a book called Gay Press, Gay Power, and then the subtitle is kind of the history of LGBTQ media. Most of the time, I use LGBTQ or LGBTQ plus, and certainly we do in writing about the community. I think the short historical name makes sense over the course of the lifetime, but it is the LGBTQ press at this point, and should be, right? So it's more the historical context I'm talking about.
So when did it change? Okay, it was gay, and then gay and lesbian, and then it became the L became before G, and then how did that happen? Who decides that?
That's funny. It's kind of a momentum thing. I don't think anybody decides it. Luckily, there's no like
There's no big gay poobah or
there's no
something.
big wow. But when I started in '84, it's funny. There was a debate. In fact, letters to the editor in Gay Life newspaper about using gay and lesbian pride. Like people wanted to keep it just gay pride. Eventually, it's just become pride because it's simpler. So gay and lesbian was the thing in the '80s. In the '90s, it started. I know that we changed it when it outlined / Windy City Times. Later, it was the voice of the LG or GLBT community. And then, yes, you're right. Somehow L became first. There was like a critical mass of people start to change and use those words. That's how it changes. It's been very interesting, right? Within every community, that's the case. There's a huge debate on using Latinx, for example.
Oh,
Some folks want to, some don't, and that's within and outside the community. So I think that's the case with the LGBTQ plus community. I do really, really hate the divides within the community when it comes to who should be included. For example, some people don't think non-binary or trans or intersex should be part of that. It's a ridiculous fight. We've always been part of that umbrella, and to think that we have the right to be less inclusive, like to me, the direction we've been moving in is more inclusive. And as society tries to jerk back rights, we as a community need to make sure we're staying on the arc towards forward progress instead of breaking that progress. So I think the LGBTQ plus is probably the most inclusive at this point. But as you're writing it out, as you're including people to make sure intersex, gender non-binary, asexual, agender, all of those things are important as well.
yeah, that's just something I just want to ask someone that question.
Yeah.
All right, one more picture.
This is a collection of most of my projects outside of the newspaper world. So various books. I did a game called That's So Gay. It's about 2,400 trivia questions. I did produce a couple movies, one with Sharon Glass called Hannah Free, Scrooge and Marley, which is a gay Christmas movie that's going to be re-released on its 10th anniversary this winter. You're the first to hear. And a poetry piece called Body of Rooms. The rest of those are books that are available on Amazon. Some of them are in color. They have a color and a black and white edition. The Gay Press, Gay Power is the one that does look back at 100+ years history of LGBT media in the country.
All right. We'll be right back with Tracy with some more information later on. Thank you. Part 3 of our interview with Tracy Baim is coming up. But first, let's get back with Russell. Russell, come on in.
Hey! Oh, so amazing.
I can't get over that, how honored and privileged I am to be able to talk to all these people from all over the world. And Tracy, she's got such a history of herself, what she's done with the print media in Chicago, not just of our community, but the Chicago Reader as well. It's just phenomenal. And she's a fascinating person. We still got one segment more in the interview.
Yeah, it's impressive. It's very impressive what she's done, and there is more to come up with her. And we also have Rocco coming up, and so don't go away. There's a lot more going on. But I do want to remind everyone that what helps keep it going on is our bustiers. And you can see there the whole list of everybody who's donated to us recently, and you can become a bustier and get your name up there by using that Venmo at RJD Pro or going to amberlive.tv and using the support Amber Live button. And that is just so helpful. And we appreciate all of our bustiers so much for keeping us going. But of course, there's always one more way you can help us out, and that's by supporting one of our sponsors.
Hey, it's Lucy Bell. Have you visited the Amber Live store to get your own amazing Amber Live merch? Just visit amberlive.tv and you can see all the incredible items we have for you. Regular coffee mugs, large coffee mugs, and even magic coffee mugs. T-shirts, hoodies, sweatshirts, tote bags, and even beach towels. Y'all, they make great gifts for your friends. I've got mine. Just visit the Amber store at amberlive.tv and order yours today.
Thank you, Lucy Bell. Now let's get on with our final segment with our Tracy Baim interview. All right, let's wrap up our conversation with Tracy Baim. Come on in, Tracy.
Hi there.
Tracy, thank you so much. You've taught me a lot about the history of our community because you lived it. You were right in the middle of it, reporting it to others. So what do you see happening with or to our community in the future?
The LGBT community is fascinating to me because it's kind of an amorphous blob. It's very similar to the disability community in that if you're in the disability movement, you may not have a lot in common with someone who has a different kind of disability or from a different part. You come together at moments of time of activism and policy and celebration, but then you go back and you're within your own communities, right? So we don't have a lot in common, frankly. Upper class, cisgender, white male couple married, living in Brooklyn, rural Black lesbian couple raising a family in Tennessee. Like in general, we're very different people. And that's what's good about our community. We don't have any one leader. We don't have any one dominant organization, et cetera. It makes it difficult, but it also makes it difficult to fight us, right? We're on a million fronts. You come at us, you come at it from a million different places. So it's also a very difficult community, just like any community. You have infighting. It's the worst stuff I ever cover is the infighting and the crabbing and pulling each other down part of the movement. But when we have to, we do come together. And that is at marches in Washington. I've been to most of them since '87. The Names Project Memorial Quilt, which I'm sorry I missed in San Francisco recently. There are times and moments when we have risen to the occasion. And that's why I think I stay in the movement, because the other stuff really wants to push you out. And that it's for newer people in the movement, I think it's very hard to find a foothold because there isn't a community. There are places in the community you can go. There are organizations you can be part of. But it is a hard community to feel like you belong if you don't already have self-esteem and confidence. I think that internal homophobia is some of the stuff, and transphobia is some of the hardest stuff we have to work on. and we can hurt our own much more than the outside can hurt us, and our families can do that as well. So we have still a lot of need for community. The problem is a lot of people who got what they needed out of it have moved on and don't support it, and they don't realize that there are so many people that still need it, still many homeless youth, people who are survivors of violence, etc., still need our community. So my hope is that there are enough people that got what they needed to and will come back and support as we see these horrible bills moving our movement backwards, and we align together and make sure the trans movement is fully embraced within our movement and supported in these horrible anti-trans laws, these anti-gay laws, etc. We need a strong movement now more than ever.
Where does that start? Okay, we've got Texas, we've got Florida, we've got these other states that are saying, oh yeah, we want to do that too. So where do we start to stop it?
I think it's a multi-pronged approach, just like it was in the early years of HIV and AIDS. People need to pick the lane they're most comfortable in. Some people are very comfortable in electoral politics, and so knocking on doors and getting out the vote in those key states, move or visit Georgia and other key states that are going to be possible to switch. The governor's seats are probably the most important seats existing right now because they can hold back these gerrymandered state Senate and state representatives. See, the problem is the right wing created these very red meat districts, both on the state level and the congressional level. The only way we overcome those is when there's a statewide race and fight the voter suppression. So for those who care about electoral politics, there are many places to engage, in places where we can change the makeup of the governor's mansions and the Senate seats. And there are a few congressional races that are possible, but it's the Senate seats that there are statewide that we have a shot at. So that's one area. To me, the activism in the streets is still always important. You need that outside pressure. The school board races are important, and the support of organizations on the ground in those states. So support trans organizations in those states where these laws have passed. That they are the ones that know how to get services and help to the people most at need. So pick a lane. You can't do it all. We all cannot do it all. We got to figure out where you're most comfortable, and electoral politics is just one of those. Policy is another, activism is another, and organizational support is another.
Well, Tracy, thank you so much for your 4 decades of activism, of journalism, and just being there for us. So thank you so much, Tracy. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Thanks, Amber. I really appreciate being on.
Thank you. Thank you. So much to talk about, but we learned so much tonight as well. Thank you so much, Tracy Baim. And yeah, go check out the Chicago Reader. Go check out the Windy City Times. Just check it out and do what you said. Google Studs Terkel. That's quite an honor that she was the recipient of his award. Wow, that was so cool. But you know what's cool? Our weekly appearances by our good friend Rocco Zamboni. What you got for me this week, Rocco?
Hey everybody, this is Rocco. I'm outside a casino on Long Island called Jake's 58. And I gotta tell you, I'm winning some money because that's what I do. I'm winning some money and I'm with the honeys. Hey, if you're gonna go anywhere, go there. Why? I don't know. It ain't Atlantic City, it ain't Foxwoods, it ain't Vegas. But they got some rooms. They kinda got a bar. It's alright. Whatever. Hey, this is Rocco saying, see you later. Hey, this is Rocco Zamboni, and I'm in a hot tub somewhere on Long Island. I won't tell you where. Surrounded by young chicks. You know how it is. I don't know if you can hear me because there's a lot of echo in this joint. Echo! Yeah, echo. Anyway, I just wanted to say, hey, I'm in a hot tub and you're not. And if you are in a hot tub, why you got a computer or a TV or something in the hot tub? You can get electrocuted. Knock it off. Learn something. All right, I gotta go take care of things. Somebody pooped. There's a floaty in the hot tub.
Rocco never fails. We'll see him again next week. And I hope to see you again next week as well. Bye-bye.
Boog, can you believe this is the 3rd season of Amber Live? And she has done over 100 episodes? Wait, what? I'm in a unicorn tip top! Are you high on sugar again? It ain't sugar this time! Well, folks, that's it. No joke this week. I'm the joke.